Disintegration Blast! Ha! Thanks for the fuel. Oh no, I have made a huge mistake. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, Title Update 3 recently hit Sunbreak, and oh, what a lovely time it is. This time around, we got 3 new monsters, a whole new host of anomaly monsters, the Afflicted types, and a big chunk of decorations to mess around with our builds in a great way. Of course, on a surface level, this is great, but we have a vast history of previous title updates to compare this to, and so I figured it's a good time to talk about this update now that I've experienced everything it has to offer as a bit of a retrospective. What's changed? How has it changed? Was it a good update? How does it compare to the previous 2 updates? And what does it make me expect for the future? Well, to begin, we of course need to talk about the big main additions this time around, being Chaotic Gore Magala, Risen Kushala Daora, and Risen Teostra. In my honest opinion, I think these are pretty much all some of the most enjoyable fights that we have in the game. I think I said something similar with Title Update 2, but that doesn't take anything away from this, at least for me personally. Because what it says to me is that the updates are just getting better and better with each one. The monsters keep improving, their fights keep improving, and that means that as we progress into future, further title updates, my expectations are only getting higher. Chaotic Gore Magala was a huge amount of fun, a known variant involved in previous games. He returns with a bunch of new moves, fully updated visuals that are just absolutely beautiful. I love that you can even tell which wing is and isn't shed into Shagaru wing just by the lighting on them alone. Fight-wise, I think he makes it all much more interesting. Both Gore and Shagaru have an extremely notable attack where they fire out a frenzy ball and then it has aftershock explosions and a horizontal axis to where the initial ball landed at a 90-degree angle to the monster itself, but Chaotic makes this, well, a bit more chaotic.
That's a little on the nose, don't you think?
Instead of a horizontal line, his big ball of frenzy spreads out in a sort of star pattern, creating a whole field to dodge. And funnily enough, one of the only angles that doesn't come out is the horizontal one, meaning that you have to fully retrain your brain from the original 2 monsters and learn that the horizontal angle is actually safe rather than being the one place that is dangerous. On top of this, he has a big massive frenzy explosion and a whole other host of attacks too. And of course, he is notably way faster and more aggressive than either of his counterparts, which not only makes the fight higher paced, but also reflects the lore of him being extremely agitated by the state he's stuck in. Then we have Risen Kushala Daora, and god damn if this just isn't one of my top 3 to 5 fights in the entire game. Visually, he is beautiful. I love Kushala with the pink lines on him and the scars, it just looks great. And then when he goes full on Risen mode with the orange bits, it looks fantastic too. But the fight itself is just genuinely the best that Kushala has ever been. He has a double wind blast beam, he does interesting things with tornadoes, his paw slams have a wind effect on them. It just feels so fun to be a part of the fight. I personally didn't find a massive amount of difficulty while fighting him, but I enjoyed the experience just so much. Every attack has a relatively defined telegraph, and while he can hit large areas of effect on occasion, they are easy to dodge once you've recognized the windup. He has a big wind blast that turns into a bit of an explosion, and his pace is increased dramatically. It's hard to put my finger on exactly what makes this fight so fun for me, but I just think it's incredibly designed as a whole. No doubt the best Kushala that we have ever seen, and it just makes me like regular Kushala more as a result. Like, honestly, I would be ecstatic if this was just what base Kushala Daora was like in future games. My opinion upon seeing him would change from, oh, it's you again, to, oh, hell yeah, it's you again. And then finally for the new monsters, we of course have Risen Teostra. When I said that Risen Kush didn't feel all that much more difficult, this is sort of what I was comparing it to, because Risen Teostra feels way harder than his base form. Visually, I love the way that he looks as well. He gets these sort of burn scars, he's totally wreathed in his own fire, and even his paws light up with a sort of blue fire when he gets particularly hot. The fight itself, though, is painful as hell, and not in an irritating or annoying way, but in a way that, again, is actually really enjoyable to go against. He uses his supernova way more often than base Teostra does, and it does way more damage and even has a longer range on it too, while also being super speedy. If you are in a long animation, you will most likely get caught out, and if that happens, you will pretty much just die. He is just a very high-paced fight in general. Multiple attacks with the capability to one-shot hunters, and it makes it a very rewarding fight to succeed at, in my opinion. Learning his moves is important, and it gives you a great feeling when you start to predict some of the deadlier ones. On top of that, we got the Chaotic Gore weapons, which are cool, and of course when used in combination with the Bloodlust skill, they give you an insane amount of affinity once you've cleared Frenzy, but weirdly, if you want to use them with the Chaotic Gore armor set, you you'd actually overcap on affinity because that armor also comes with loads of critical eye. It seems just a little bit weird to me that it's been comboed in this way, but it's interesting anyways. The skills that we got on chaotic armor in Strife and Berserk are quite unique. Strife increasing your affinity and elemental damage proportionally to your red health bar, and Berserk essentially making you unable to take damage from attacks when in blue scroll because all of your health turns to red health, but also your health drains at an increasingly fast rate. These skills are both super interesting, especially when used in combination, but honestly they are extremely hard to get proper use out of. As such, they become interesting, fun, and niche skills, which is, well, something that I've been asking for more of in Sunbreak for ages. New skills that let you think in interesting ways while you fight, and build differently than the meta, but aren't so brokenly strong that you have to do it. It's a happy medium.
It's perfect.
Risen Kushala gets a new skill in Wind Mantle that messes with the recharge time of your wirebug gauge, which is really cool. It has varying effects and efficiency depending on your weapon, and again, it isn't the be-all end-all of skills. You don't have to use it, but it lets you build in some more interesting ways to change your playstyle a little bit depending on your weapon. And then finally, Risen Teostra armor gives us Powder Mantle. This one is just sort of cool and sort of free. It is already on pieces of armor that are just extremely efficient, tons of good skills, and so your standard cookie-cutter meta builds will generally wind up with at least one rank of Powder Mantle just by default. And I sort of really like that, because it isn't a skill that makes you play weirdly, it simply rewards you for not being hit for a while by giving you a nice pop of up to 600 damage against a monster. Nothing massive, nothing game-breaking, just a nice little added bonus if you're playing well. The only thing that I'm sort of sad about still is that Risen monsters don't get new weapons, but in the grand scheme of things that isn't really a massive deal. It's only particularly noticeable in this update because 2/3 of our new monsters are Risen ones, so we only got one new weapon. We also of course got a whole host of new decorations, no new skills within them, but new ways to access skills that we already could. 4-slot versions of decorations that were only 2 or 3 slots before, and just skills that didn't have decorations beforehand. It just opens up some more options when you're making builds. It lets you customize things more the way that you want to. And then of course we have the Anomaly monsters. A7 quests are brutal as hell. They do so much damage, they have loads of health, and they are just fun monsters to have added to the pool in general. Of course, with the Elder Dragons getting their Risen forms, we know that we won't be getting Afflicted Elder Dragons, so the system is very much nearing its endpoint, hence why the max Anomaly level was raised by 80, which is a massive grind to do if you want to get to the new maximum of 200. The new monsters themselves will start showing up in investigations way earlier than that, so there's no worries there if you just want to fight them in general without getting their unlocks, but if you do want all the new decorations and to also unlock their dedicated quests, you will have to grind a massive amount to get to 181 Anomaly research level for all those unlocks to start happening. To me, this sort of signifies that A7 will be the last rank of Afflicted monsters added. Of course, there are still more monsters that could get Afflicted forms, such as Lucent Nargacuga and Violent Mizitsune specifically, but I think if they do get Afflicted forms, they will probably just be added to the A7 tier retroactively, as I don't really see it making sense to add an A8 tier for 2 monsters, nor do I think that those 2 are notably higher tier than the monsters that we now already have in A7, also being variants. As for the other monsters, the properly new ones, it's worth noting at this point that we haven't actually had a new monster in any of the title updates, by which I mean that we have had new monsters. Violent Mizitsune, for example, had never existed in any other Monster Hunter game, but it is a variant of Mizitsune who was already in Sunbreak. Every monster added within a title update is a variation of a monster we already had in the game in some way, shape, or form.
Thought I killed you already.
I don't necessarily view this as an outright bad thing either, as this is likely what is letting us get 3 monsters per title update, unlike things like Iceborne, where we would often just get 1 monster, sometimes 2 if we were lucky, but it is an interesting thing to make note of. With that said, how do I feel about this title update? Well, I think it's fantastic. I enjoyed every moment of the new fights, I found them very fun, and because of that I sort of think that it's better than the previous title updates that Sunbreak's gotten as well. The new A7 monsters provide quite a bit of challenge, and the rewards for all of this content are quite meaningful for the future of Monster Hunter. The only real sadness that I found was in the absolute grind to get up to Anomaly research level 181. It takes a lot of effort, but if it is the last time that we do have to grind for research levels, then I can accept that. As for the future of Sunbreak, what do I see happening in upcoming title updates? Well, that's the kicker, right? We are at the tail end of Anomaly quests of the Afflicted monsters. They literally cannot add more than 2 new Afflicted monsters unless they put even more monsters into the game that can be afflicted. And and so a major part of these title updates is going to drop off sooner rather than later. But what will that mean? Will there just be a void where they used to be, or will it be replaced with something else? More effort into the monsters? What will it be? If I had to guess, I'd say more likely than not, in the next title update, we might get our first actual proper new monster of the DLC period. Maybe not literally a new monster, one that no one has ever heard of, as it could easily just be a returning monster that we haven't seen for a while, but specifically due to a conversation that our hunters have with Paz the Chevalier after defeating the new monsters. She makes mention about the possibility of an expedition into Yamogi's homeland to defeat the monster that drove them out of their kingdom. This brings up two possibilities. The first, a whole new map. This seems unlikely to me. The chances of a proper new map this deep into the DLC cycle just seem very low, as it would need to be populated with multiple new monsters to really make any sense, but hey, that dream exists, right? But secondarily, the one that I think is entirely likely is one big important fight. I think the next update is probably just going to be centered around one massive threat in a big arena map designed entirely to fight it alone. I don't want to quite predict what it will be, as we have limited information, of course, but I can absolutely see this coming to pass. Aside from that, there are of course more Risen Elder Dragons. The one that I think we are most likely to get is Risen Valstrax. He would be incredible with a Risen form, especially considering how cool Crimson Glow already is in Sunbreak, and that would leave two more viable candidates to be Risen in my opinion. I don't think Ibushi or Narwa will get Risen forms really, that would just be a bit too massive as far as I'm concerned. And Geismagorm definitely doesn't even make any sense, as he is basically the master of the curios to begin with. But then we have two Elder Dragons remaining. Shagaru Magala, who could quite reasonably be explained to have a Risen form, though I don't know if they would even want to include that so closely to Chaotic Gore, which just came out, and that's essentially just another form of Shagaru anyways. And well, there's also Malzeno. Malzeno is a bit of a toss-up, really. If you want to talk lore-wise, Malzeno technically is a Risen monster by default in the form that we originally fight him in. Instead of overcoming the curios, he found a way to control them to an extent so they weren't just actively killing him, but I could easily see them saying fuck it and just making him Risen anyways. Remove all of his curios and show us what it would be like to fight a Malzeno that is fully freed from his responsibilities of protecting the world around him from the leech bats. My main predictions though are simple. One big, new or returning monster in its own arena map to hit a really strong story beat for Yamogi, and also Risen Valstrax, which I think is likely to be an absolutely incredible fight. To sum everything up then, we got a lot of good in Title Update 3. I think it might be my favorite one yet. I feel like the title updates to this game are just genuinely getting better every time we get a new one, and I can't wait to see what we'll get in the future. I don't think we have a whole lot more to gain from the Afflicted and Anomaly system, but we'll have to see what Capcom decides to do with that the next time. I hope you've all enjoyed this discussion about Title Update 3. I have a lot of positive feelings here, but of course let me know what you think down below, as I enjoy hearing the opinions of others too. Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.